Hi. In this last video in the series, we're going to look at the boot sizes. C boot, the upper boot, the bottom boot. Now, if you looked at the picture on this video when you first the thumbnail or whatever it's called, I put a page out of the book by Sen and Roy on Jacob Steiner, and they went through Europe basically in the 80s and found every original Steiner they could find and measured. These are published measurements of about 100 of them. I have measurements of, and the interesting thing is that if you look at it, no two violins have the same measurement boot size. Why is that? It was, Steiner was an odd fella. And in the end, you got to think of the 1600s. What was going on then? Alchemy, burning people, witchcraft. Where he lived in Austria, at that time Lutheranism was coming through Germany, which was still run by a king. And the church had some sway, but not all sway. The king still had held sway there. And Jacobus was a maker to the king. But in the end, he gets charged with heresy. And he was a heretic. And he spent a year in jail, but he at least avoided the king, got him, so they didn't burn him at the stake. I mean, the times were quite different then. A lot of dead people around, I can imagine. Now, what I'm getting at here is that it was also said that Steiner had to see the person he was making the violin for. Now, he didn't arbitrarily end up at all those different answers. I'm sure he started with those sizes, dimensions, and made his violin. He didn't end up at that with those dimensions. Now, all I can think of is that this was actually a representation of the human head and how it vibrates and how you create sound. These would be your eyes. These are your ear cavities. This boot size, this boot size, and this boot size I took from my own head, if you will, and made a violin with my dimensions. And they fell within the range of the dimensions Steiner was using. So I found this dimension here, and this dimension here, and at the bridge. At the bridge is right between where your eyes are, between your eyes. Just below your eyes where your nose is. Now this is, first we'll get to this one. This is the width of your head, actually. And this, to create the volume of the skull, is based on your chest size. The size of your chest, because that's going to determine how loud you're going to be able to sing and how loud you're going to be able to hear. I have an instrument that I play myself all the time that were my exact measurements, and fortunately or unfortunately, when I play it, my vocal cords go into resonation and are in sympathy with the instrument. So after 2 or 3 minutes, it's like I've been screaming for an hour, which isn't good, but it depends how you look at that. I know that in Mendelssohn's book on the violin, he mentions that Mozart's concert instrument was a Steiner, and that Bach had a stainer, and his words were that Bach meditated musically on that stainer for a week and then wrote his violin sonatas. Now that word meditated really drew my curiosity. And later when I found that when I play my violin, it is the sweetest sound I've ever heard. to myself. It's a hard one to explain. I know that I've sold 32 instruments to people and they never came back. They never came back once. I never even seen them again. I don't know why. I mean, if the instrument wasn't worthy, they would have brought it back, but they played them before they took them and they were all fascinated by it. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Another area I have to get into here is that you look through these two holes. It gets back to the imagery and optical illusions, I guess that you see on this if you stare at it long enough, like I do, carving it. That if you look through these two holes and allow your eyes to just relax and these will move together in your vision and create a heart with an arrow through it, pointing to the front here. If you can do that, then when you... I've got another plate to demonstrate this. When I look at the inside of this, I never see it go down. Never. This is always up in the air. Every time I look at it, it pops up in the air. Because I just let my eyes go a bit, and this reverses its image. Hell of a lot easier to carve something on this nature that you can see in front of you than this, that you are, how you perceive your eye is going in the same direction, like convex to this. It's so different than your eye being opposite and sees down. This is opposite. By bringing that out into the reverse, every chip I take out creates a bump in my vision, what I see. And then this only happens when you reach a certain arc here. It will then turn inside out. And as soon as it does, then you carve an image. There's an image I carve on this. Thicknesses are the results of this image and this image. Everything in between those two is the thickness. But that's in a perfect world. I do have to take care when I'm carving it. I've come to realize that you carve this first, the inside of the back. Create the edge before you carve it in, because it's offset. And some of these pieces like this stand up about, looks like 3 or 4 millimeters above this edge. As these go down 2 or 3 millimeters below this edge. You don't hate to find that out when you're carving down from the top. So by carving it in there, I have got my final inside finished. Then I can use it as a reference now when carving this, where I have more control to carve this outer, because it's three-dimensionally up here like a hill. Easier to carve than if it was down. I can see everything I do. These are just some considerations I've had. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. I have violins that are finished. You saw them in my first video. I don't want to bring them back, but I mean, I made them using all the principles I've described in these videos. So it got me that far. Anyways, thanks for watching these, and I hope you take this and put some thought to it, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I do have a finished product that was based on what I said. Anyways, thank you very much for watching.